Welcome to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. If you're a creative thinker with an unconventional approach to your industry, you just might be a happy disruptor. Join your friends at the Great Outdoors Foundation for honest conversations about tackling critical issues like conservation with an uncritical disposition. If you like to smile and get things done, this is the podcast for you.
Hello, and welcome back to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. We are once again joined by Kami Rankin and Leopold from Polk County Conservation. If you haven't already, go back and listen to part one of this conversation where we discuss the origins of the Great Outdoors Foundation's relationship with Polk County Conservation. We talk favorite projects, we talk bonds, cover a really wide spectrum of topics. But for this episode, I really want to talk about the next phase of this relationship between the two organizations. So we are in the process of developing this new entity that will service Polk County Conservation. Maybe the three of you want to just talk through what started that and what are the benefits of having this new entity?
Yeah, I can start from the GOF perspective. It's kind of funny because we grew to be able to go back to our roots. The original partnership with Polk County Conservation and Great Outdoors Foundation really allowed GOF to grow bigger. And that was to be able to leverage more dollars regionally that ultimately would impact Polk County Conservation the most.
Right.
And so we've done that in a number of initiatives like Icon Water Trails and some of the water quality work. Although it's a larger regional project, it really has tremendous benefit for Polk County Conservation. And so, but now we're getting so big and there's so many different initiatives that we really had to diversify the ability to go after different funds.
Right.
And so we came up with this concept of, okay, let's go back to the roots of this original partnership, and the back office work and the support would still be taken on by the Great Outdoors Foundation because we've built that because of this partnership. But now we have this entity that's just focusing on Polk County Conservation, not just their projects, but like I said before, they've built this great tradition where they are really ingrained in people's lives, setting up the endowment, the legacy, being able to have the scholarships for the Youth Conservation Corps, and taking that support for Polk County Conservation to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know how much I can really add to that, except that I know, we both have thriving organizations. And so it was to the point where, we both, want to apply for the same funding sources or the same grants. And that's a great thing, right? But trying to figure out how do we do that in a partnership way. And I think that's kind of how this new way of thinking is coming to be. We've got our volunteer coordinators out in the field, and they're working with Athene and Salmons and all these big companies, and the first questions out of their mouths are, hey, we love what you do. How can we give to you? And so there's all these really specific examples within our agency. And so I love the fact that we are moving forward to figure out how do we capitalize on so many people that are, friends of ours and fond of our areas in order to really benefit both of our agencies, but then also the community, obviously, as a whole.
I really like that phrase. We had to grow to go back to our roots, something like that, because that's what it is. I look at the Great Outdoors Foundation, and you have built tremendous capacity. Kaitie, Hannah, Jen, the whole crew down there. And then look what's happened with Icon Water Trails, this entire organization that has came out of GOF. So you have this tremendous infrastructure, and you've had much success. And so now within Polk County Conservation, looking at going back and how do we plug in to the 2 kayaks and the scholarships and all of those different things, and having somebody within GOF that intimately knows and works day to day with Polk County Conservation is going to have tremendous benefit. Kami has already been leading an exercise from all of our managers to put together a wish list for you, and it's spreadsheeted. And I looked at that wish list, and they got all the way from $60 to $6 million of different things. But you in Great Outdoors Foundation, you're the ones that do this, that solicit these gifts and have these relationships and build them over time. So our people are the ones on the ground that are actually going to be operating and doing it, but they don't have the capacity or know-how to do what you all do. So I am really excited about this partnership.
Yeah, and I've had people ask me in the past, like, why did you have to grow bigger to, do something like this? And when you think of a nonprofit organization and all the pieces that you have to have in place to do things very, very well, right? You have marketing, obviously, you have fundraising, but you have the fiscal management, the insurance, the audits to make sure that you're spending things, correctly, the coding, all of those things, right? It's very, very hard because a lot of that overhead is considered operational costs. Well, a lot of nonprofit funding is, they don't allow for operational fundraising, right? Grant sources and things like that. So to be able to build a model where that back end financing, that operational piece is shared across many different nonprofits, gives us this economy of scale, but also frees up additional resources for everyone. So it was very much sort of intuitive from the beginning that was what we were going to have to do. And so now it'll be supporting Polk County Conservation. The back end is helping with Icon Water Trails and other nonprofits helping to continuing Iowa Rivers Revival's mission and their program work. So I think sometimes people don't think through the logistics of what a nonprofit really has to have in place to do things well. So we're really excited to be able to finally fulfill the original vision.
Oh, and all that background bureaucracy that is so necessary, because it's like our people are doing children's programming, or they're building a trail, or they're doing timber stand improvement, or whatever it is. They don't know how to, and they don't want to know how to do all that stuff. But we need that within an organization to support building more trails, having more kids programming, doing more water quality projects, things like that.
Yeah. So, okay, the other question I get a lot, and I'm sure you guys have heard it, is this is fantastic. We love it, but Polk County is the most populous county in the state, which means they have a larger tax base, which also theoretically could mean there's a larger, donor pool there. Do you think our model can still be used in smaller communities and in rural communities?
So I'll start shortly and then let Kami carry it. Is absolutely. So we didn't start big. We started little, even here in Polk County. And, we often get that with a lot of things we do within Polk County. And I've said this before is, it's Polk County. Of course they did it. How'd you do it? So their next sentence is they want to know. And so we've shared experiences, whether it be, working with nonprofits or the Youth Corps model or water monitoring or many other programs too. So yeah, sometimes it does take scale to get these things going. But once they do, we share everything. The universal design that we did at Easter Lake, we not only did what we consider to be the most universally designed accessible park in the United States, we created a checklist that offered it free to everybody. We've done workshops, we've printed manuals, we have online resources. So anybody in the state, anybody in the country can benefit from this work.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, I think of our naturalists and talk about sharing. They come up with some just amazing, spectacular programming, and the first thing they do is they share it. They share it across the state. So back to your question about how big, Polk County is, and we have more tax base. You know what? There's pros and cons with that. And yes, we do have more tax base, But I'll tell you, it is tough in terms of reaching the public too, where some of the smaller rural counties don't have the challenge we have of reaching people and letting them know who we are and what we're doing and why we're so important for this region. So there's pros and cons with each. And I think as a county, you just embrace what situation you have, and it's doable, and you run with it, and you figure out the challenges as you go ahead.
Yeah, that is something too. The smaller counties have the opportunity of scale to have more personal relationships with business owners and school superintendents and stuff like that. Ours is so big that we don't do that. Last year we calculated 3.7 million visitors to our parks and trails, which is an astounding number. But what that does is it impersonalizes some of the relationships because we are so big. We have to have more formal structure.
I mean, we do anything we can, knowing that we only have such limited staff, in contact. I mean, we do so much passive, like interpretation and things like that to try to make sure we've got a footprint out there. We've got a visual, but yet we may not physically be there. We do whatever we can in order to make sure that they know, hey, this is maybe what their bond funds went towards, or this is a partnership we have and so forth.
Yeah, so let's dig it. You brought up the bond again. Again, if you haven't listened already, go back and listen to our first discussion. But there are other counties now doing conservation bonds really successfully too. Do we want to talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, we have Story County, Johnson County, Lynn County, Adams County. Dubuque tried it, and they might try it again. So, but yeah, there are quite a few other counties that are doing this and having success. There's only been one that wasn't successful thus far. So I do think, and we've had lots of presentations. Kami can speak to one. She was in just last week, I think it was.
Yeah. So we get a lot of questions. We get a lot of phone calls. Hey, do you and Rich have time to talk about bond referendums? And we always say yes. Let us fill you in on everything we can. So it's on people's minds. Things aren't getting any cheaper, right? Restoring waterways and the many things that we do, building nature centers and things like that, they're expensive. And so everyone's trying to find resources in order to make those type of projects and programs happen in their communities.
Yeah. And that kind of leads then into the private side as well with the nonprofit support, the friends group support. Kami, I've heard you talk about looking at regional needs and almost seeing, is there benefit to taking, a larger scale approach so that each individual entity isn't having to develop their own GOF? Back to Hannah's point, it's a lot of work, right, to get a nonprofit off the ground.
It is, and that's what we do hear that a lot, because you're some of these counties or whatever, there's like one person and they're answering the phone and they're mowing the grass and they're doing everything. They're giving a nature program. And so they're limited resources, but I think there is value in possibly looking in some type of regional partnerships for we already kind of do that. Like I think of our annual conferences and stuff we have. We're to the point now where we've got 2 or 3 counties that actually work together and they host the conference, and the conferences are strong. And so maybe having that mentality moving forward with, some type of funding mechanism or partnerships, private partner, public partnerships is something to consider and might have some viability at times.
In my mind, a lot of it is form follows function too. So, we do have organization like with watershed management authorities that are based on common water bodies like Beaver Creek or Raccoon River, stuff like that. Sometimes you have a geographic area that has tourism or chambers of commerce that work together and stuff like that. So I think a lot of it is just driven by where you're at. So what your backyard looks like and if you're used to having partnerships with nearby areas.
When I look at some of the successful things that we've done, whether it's centered on Polk County Conservation or if Polk County Conservation was an important part of it, it usually includes the community foundation or, elements of the community foundation that comes along. So your local community foundation is super helpful. The chamber, right? Economic development, businesses coming alongside. And then one of the early things that, from an outsider's perspective coming in, that I think GOF did in the early years before I was there that I think helped lay the foundation later was something as simple as the school bus scholarships, right? So GOF would raise $300 for each elementary school to either go to Jester Park Nature Center once it was built, or for them to come, the naturalists to go into the school. And when I came on, we were continuing those, and it was super easy to fundraise for, right? Like you'd go in and say, for $5,000, you can fund every school in Des Moines to go out to Jester Park Nature Park. And everyone was like, oh yeah, sign me up. Right. I'll do multiple years of that, right? But what happened was when we would go and fundraise, whether it was for, at the North Shore or just general operational funding, every single time I would get one person that said, oh yeah, Lewis was in our school and I remember the bat presentation and my kids came home and talked about it and we had to go out and, go to this park and see those things. Or I was a chaperone to Jester Park Nature Center. And I really think that getting those connections are really important to lay that like long term. And it's easy, right? Like it's the work that the county is already doing, Conservation Board is already doing, and it's what they're best at.
Yeah.
So.
And making that connection, that fundraising gets easy because they're coming into the outdoors. They're having some type of a life-affirming event happen, whether it's catching a frog with Lewis or whatever it is, and then they want to be able to participate. How do I help that? How do I make sure that this stays for the next generation?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, obviously this has been integrated into the conversation both now and in our earlier episode, but we talk a lot about our values at GOF being innovation, collaboration, and stewardship. How do you see those three or one of those deployed in this, particular partnership? And then, how do you see that playing out in the future as well?
Geez, all of them. I mean, those are, when I hear the three words you just said, I see examples in that in every single thing we are doing with you and in the future. You talk about stewardship. Well, I mentioned earlier our volunteer program, but that's what they're doing. They're out there working with people to be stewards of our land, in a really intimate way. Collaboration. That's the heart of everything you guys do. And it's starting to be the heart of everything we do, collaborating with so many different agencies and people in our community that we never would have came into contact with if it wasn't because of our partnership with the Great Outdoors Foundation. So it's a few of my thoughts.
And innovation, right? The last of the three. Everything is moving so fast, and being able to respond to that, we still have our core values, and we have things and we do things that who can argue against having a nature program for kids or improving water quality or getting a better bike trail for my community, right? But then the innovation of it is like now we have electric bikes. And so we have a lot of the population that's mobility impaired or getting older. I can relate to that. And the electric bike thing is something that they want to do. We've been talking about commuter routes. So we've got recreational trails everywhere. And there's a lot of industry now that wants to go softer on the earth, have less of a carbon footprint. Facilitating bikes as a way to get to work and back home is a good thing. So we need to be participating and ahead of those innovative trends and think about how we integrate and how we become a part of that answer.
So I have a question for you guys. I'm going to take us off script, Kaitie. What would you, like, if you think of the next 30 years of this partnership, right? Since we're at the 30-year anniversary, what would success look like looking back at this?
Oh, success to me, I think just a really healthy model of our two agencies working together. And, you know, I always look at it as, you know, we've kind of got the people, right? You know, we've got all the people enjoying our parks and doing our programs and stuff, and we need to funnel their energy and their passion somewhere, and that's through you know? And so I kind of see that like kind of a connected or engaged community that really understands what we do. They understand what you do. They know how to support, you know, what we do in order to benefit the community. So I guess maybe just an increased level of awareness and on how they can get plugged in and what they can do. And I feel like I've seen tremendous growth from, you know, who's Polk County Conservation, you know, who's the Great Outdoors Foundation, and now I feel like we're both at a whole different level and we're very recognized. So maybe eventually the next step is just this really interconnectedness where they see us as a really powerful team and mechanism for, you know, what we do, you know, all of our mission components.
So big vision, yeah. 30 years, personally, I see myself sitting in a cabin, reading, fishing, listening to birds, sipping on some coffee, not caring. Okay, so, but as far as the organization, I'd love to see a lot of things just be assumed good, right? So like the Raccoon River is incredibly clean, and yes, everybody plays in it all the time. Well, yeah, of course we have bike trails linking every single community and park in this county. Why wouldn't we? Every kid has the opportunity to go to a summer camp and participate and camp outside. It's always been that way, hasn't it? You know, to have those types of basic community sentiments, societal sentiments. So like right now, you know, we struggle. We've made a ton of progress and we continue to progress no matter what the politics or anything else going on. But to have some of what we see as our utopian vision just be the way things are 30 years from now.
I love that.
I feel like that should have been our Let's Whiteboard It question because that was so beautiful. How about you, Hannah? What is your vision of 30 years from now?
I mean, I think what Rich says, like that's exactly it. Where things just happen, like it's just an accepted part of our the fabric of what it means to be from Central Iowa. That we have not just kids going through conservation crew getting scholarships, but maybe we have a program at Iowa State that, you know, is conservation and conservation agronomy and, you know, all the different things where it's just part of who it is. And when you talk about Des Moines or Central Iowa, you're assuming you're talking about the trails and the parks.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so because I feel like you all have just a wealth of knowledge as it pertains to, you know, doing this incredible county conservation work and from the nonprofit side, our Let's Whiteboard It question is going to be, what is the ingredient to success? Only one.
Yeah.
Only one.
Only one. So you can draw or write. But what do you think is the secret sauce? And while they are wrapping up, thank you so much for joining. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Follow along on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. And make sure to share this episode with someone who would like to learn more about the great work of Polk County Conservation.
And donate. Polk County
Conservation.
Conservation.
Yes, and donate. I know that needs to be.
We'll have a button.
Yeah, yes, it'll be in the episode description. Yeah. All right, who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Yeah,
okay.
You should.
All I had was
yes.
Be bold.
Yeah.
So, you know, returning to what I said in that first episode there, your castles should be built in the air. It's where they should be. Now build the foundations underneath. I think so much, I've talked so many times about the hardest part of any project is deciding to do that project. Once you decide you're going to do it, then Providence starts to move in that direction. So people start thinking that way, funding, logistics, organization. solutions, but you have to be bold in the vision. Don't be limited by, well, we only got this many people. Well, it's going to cost too much money. Well, this person's going to say no. Just no. Decide you're going to do something and then figure out how to build the foundation.
Okay, my whiteboard answer was passion. And I think of a few things come to mind. We wouldn't be where we are today without the passion of our staff, and not only our current staff, but many staff that came before us. I think of your staff and the passion you guys have, and you've taken that off. I mean, it's been skyrocketing over the years. And then I think of the original founding individuals that started the Great Outdoors Foundation, and that vision they had and that passion just to do something for the outdoors and in education and things like that. So I think passion carries you a long way, and you have to have it.
That's hard to say no to. And she has her own passion, which makes you want to say no. But I'm assuming that so Kami has been doing a lot for the organization, probably like 10 people would do over the years. I always say, if we could have 15 Kamis, we'd have world peace, right?
That's true.
Thank you.
So, but I was trying to think of you like sitting there, and Pat comes in. She's so like passionate and it's contagious, but you're probably like, how am I going to get this done?
That's how I felt.
And then every year you're like, oh, we have an auction to do. We have to do this. And then the bond, the first time we did the bond, and then and then Rich trying to balance, all the different, priorities and the budget and, all the politics that goes with having to manage taxpayers' dollars,
right.
Prudently with great stewardship. And so I'm so thankful, because it would have been so easy for you guys to say no, or not right now, or we're just a little too busy, or yeah, it would be great, but it's not our urgent thing. So the fact that you said yes all those years ago to Pat, the fact that you doubled down on that, right after the bond, I think is why GOF even exists in the realm that it is now. So say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good note to end on. Say yes.
Say yes.
We'll see you next time.